Hello viewers and many thanks for tuning in to Pillar TV. My name is Njoroge Kaburo and it's time for Spotlight, your favorite show. And today we are very privileged to have the Director, Digital New Media and Diaspora at State House. He's none other than Mr. Dennis Itumbi, here to talk to us about a few issues affecting our country. Mr. Deno, karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Nashukuru sana.
Thank you.
How do you feel to be home?
Perfect. Always good. You know, they always say east, west, home is best.
Yes.
So, by the way, I went to primary school at Kutu's primary school. That's why that's why I did my nursery school and my first year in primary. So this is actually home.
Oh, fantastic.
Mom was a cateress at what was KTI then before it became a university.
Yes.
So this is home. I've lived here for a while in my early childhood.
Baridi kidogo kidogo. Hujazoea hii hapa?
Lakini bana hapa sasa ile kazi imekuwa ni nyingi, kwa hivyo jasho pia imetoka.
Okay.
Yes.
Now to the issues. First things first, Mr. Itumbi.
Yes.
The president's Big Four agenda. Kindly take us through this. Let's delve deeper into the Big Four. That is the affordable healthcare, the manufacturing, the affordable housing, and food security. Let's delve deeper into this in maybe brief.
In 1963, the founders of this nation told us there were three challenges that were facing Kenya. At the time, it was illiteracy, poverty, and health. Yeah. So at the time, there was already a vision for the nation. But that vision has changed dramatically. In 1969, former President Kibaki did a session of paper number 10, which again identified two other issues on top of what was identified in 1963. Yeah. These ones included agriculture, and that's how agriculture became the mainstay of our economy, and political leadership at the time, which then was addressed through the years until when we did multi-party and did a constitution for ourselves in 2010. That progressed in 2013 when Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, the current governor of Kisumu, came up with what they called the economic strategy for Kenya. In that strategy, they identified tax collection as one of the major issues that needed to be handled. So President Kenyatta is participating in a long history of setting vision for this nation. Yeah. And the four issues he has identified touch at the very core of not only modern leadership, but modernity. Because you see, affordable housing touches to the very core of our living. When you go to healthcare, for all, it touches to the very core of our living, which was identified from 1963 consistently. Yeah. And then for food security, it's actually a shame that this nation has to beg for food, yet we have very fertile land. So I'll touch briefly but deeply as you have advised, partly because I don't want to unveil the entire plan, because that's for the president to do. As you have realized, there has been meetings that have been going on, and they are yet to be unveiled, the strategy is yet to be unveiled publicly. But because you are the first to ask that question so directly, I will give you some few exclusive matters on each of those four pillars. Each of them has very many subsets, but I will be very brief on them. So we start with affordable health. So for affordable health, the idea is to change the law so that every Kenyan is forced to have an NHIF card. Yes. Just like the way in some countries, or even in Kenya at one time, you have to go through the military before you become a civilian. So we are now saying you have to get an insurance before you are allowed to even have an ID. So that is one. And the law is going to change. A bill is coming to Parliament very soon to change it from an NHIF Act to UHC Act, which is Universal Health Act. Affordable housing. The target internally is 1 million housing. But externally, we are going to be talking of 500,000 houses. Yes. Already, if you go to Embu, Kirinyaga project is about to start, if it has not started already. There is already affordable housing for all civil servants working there. Yes. Because it is a strategy seen in Singapore that if workers of government are able to afford housing, then the economy is able to afford housing. So, but the key strategy on housing is to ensure that the rent you pay, instead of paying rent for the rest of your life, becomes the rent that you pay and you own the house after some time. So that you're not just paying rent and then after 15 years you go back to your rural home and continue living life. But you're paying rent with a view that that rent accumulates and becomes your house. Sure. And on that, we're also changing the Housing Act, because as you don't know right now, the National Housing Corporation does not allow you to have affordable loans for housing as an individual. So this will allow you to even take at 1%. It will reduce the cost of mortgage dramatically. By then, we only have, sadly, out of a working population of more than 5 million people, we only have 21,000 mortgages,
Oh,
which
really?
tells you mortgages are too high and they're not affordable,
shocking
even for the
revelation,
middle
eh?
class.
Yeah.
Then on the issue of food security,
Yeah.
you know there's a project that has been running in Galana. At the end of this month, the Israelis will have finished what they were doing on piping and water, and they will hand over that. And we are now going to do cotton, which ties to manufacturing, which is the fourth pillar, so that cotton then is supplied to do the manufacturing. So in terms of food, and you realize that concept is called food and nutrition, so that you also can address the longevity of our people, address issues like cancer, address issues like obesity, and the long-term strategy on it is also to go back to what we used to call here in the rural areas when we were growing up, makombe, the galleries. They are no longer part of our culture, but we want to invest in that so that our food is stored. You remember when aflatoxin came, they all went under. But now coming back to a community thing. And on health, by the way, we're going to hire 100,000 community workers in every county. So there are jobs coming into the county.
So you didn't talk about the manufacturing bit
So on
of
the
it.
manufacturing, the key thing is, one, we are going to have an industry for every county, so that they can be able to produce and employ, because manufacturing is there because of jobs. Most of our young people do not have jobs, and it's becoming a desperate situation. And the only way to address jobs is to allow people to invest. So there are two things. You have to address the ease of doing business to allow investors to come in. And then number two, already Kenya, between 2013 and 2015, we have attracted more investors than from 1963 to 2013. So in terms of new areas like cement manufacturing, which is a multi-billion dollar investment across the world. And then we're also going to invest very heavily on textile sector. Already the people who are making like your good jeans, the Dolces, the forgetting all those names, but they're already coming in. You've already signed contracts with 3 of them, and they're going to start setting up this here, and production of cheap power. Then what that does, it helps people start small businesses, and already we are setting up loans now, not only for youth and women, but for businesses, to be able to access that money to be able to do the job.
Okay, let's maybe focus on food deficit in the country, which probably has occasioned the government, the current move by the government to buy maize, NCPB buying maize from Uganda Grain Reserve. How bad is the situation? What is the magnitude of this drought in the country that we have to buy outside?
You see, the problem is, you and me probably have planted maize. So we explain to an audience of probably 1 or 2 people who would have never planted maize. The problem is, farmers have maize in Kenya, but they are holding it. They are waiting for the price to go up, then they can sell it. But there are people who need that maize now. You've already seen the floods and the destruction they've made. Before that, there was a prolonged period of sunlight, which had made a lot of people get into a desperate situation. We are talking of 23 counties that are facing massive starvation. So that is why we needed the maize now. And as people play the game of holding maize, and it is their right because they have put sweat into it, we also need to address that issue now. If there's surplus in a neighboring county and you're already doing away with borders through our EAC vision, then you take the maize and address it.
But speaking of that, Dennis, we saw some of the farmers in the North Rift the other day demonstrating, saying that the NCPB has suspended the purchase of maize locally. What do you say to this?
Yeah, partly because of, as I said, it's an issue of pricing. People want to be paid now. As you know, government operates through an LPO system. So it is not really suspension. The LPOs have been taken, so they need to be processed for people to be paid, then you take the next tranche of maize. What you saw all you did with Uganda is just take the surplus. Instead of Uganda throwing out maize into the ocean, why don't we take that maize and add to already what we have and distribute?
Now, the Division on Revenue Allocation 2018 says that the National Treasury has reduced the budgetary allocation to the strategic grain reserve tremendously by, I think, 3 billion. Why is it happening? Do we still have that particular program?
Yes, and that's why I told you one of the visions of our food nutrition project is to actually to have our strategic reserves actually even decentralized to the level of production. If you're doing arrowroots in a place, defathers in Kirinyaga, why would you want National Cereals Board yet you're not producing maize? So National Cereals Board needs to go away from what we know them for, to be only maize, to a grain strategy, so that the grain strategy is beyond what we are talking about here, about maize only.
Yeah. And speaking of that and talking about Kirinyaga, maybe probably as an agrarian economy, What do you think needs to be done to ensure that the county, which can serve the nation and feed the nation, realizes this goal of feeding this nation?
We need to appreciate large-scale farming. This farming of 1/8 of an acre is not going to take us anywhere.
Yes.
We have to pool resources so that we're not doing the biashara of I have started an M-Pesa and everybody starts an M-Pesa shop. Or I've started a water dispenser and everybody has a water dispenser as their business. So a combination of our lands to target vision. So we say this, if our farmers can agree to say, Kirogoya, we are going to produce dengu. When we go to Gariama, we are going to produce beans.
Yeah.
That overall strategy is going to make us attractive to investors and to markets. So I think as part of the vision, and I know the governor and her leadership have the vision, is to probably look at targeted large-scale farming as opposed to tin farming.
All right, let's talk about environmental matters. And the other day, the Ministry of Environment, gazetted an additional 170 water towers to, in the efforts to boost environment, environmental conservation. But in areas where, people live within the forest belt, there are still challenges where these guys feel complacent. They feel that maybe they've attained the 10% forest cover. What can we do to forestall such a mentality to ensure that these people really embrace planting trees?
I think people like you are the people who need to read this. People you tell you on the camera there, Beatrice on the camera there. Probably you're the people who need to start that revolution.
Yes.
I mean, if I was coming for this interview and you took me to plant a tree, I think that would have started the mentality. Mentality starts with us. I think one of the biggest problems on environmental conservation is that we ourselves are detached from it and we are looking at a solution from other people. I think we need to look for a solution where before we do service, things that unite us every day, like on Sunday we all go to church. If every small church in every parish, the same way we collect quota and goes to a diocese, all the way the parish, the archdeacon to the diocese, if the same way we can say every parish plants, this Sunday plants 20 trees, and that escalates to diocese, we would have planted, that mathematics brings me to around 100,000 trees this Sunday alone. In a month, you have done 400,000 trees. So I think the mentality needs to start with us.
Now let's talk about also the one major project in the, maybe the Jubilee administration. The president and his deputy visited Kirinyaga to launch the Debugger, which of course will double the rice production in the wider Mwea irrigation scheme. What is in your own assessment, is the pace of this project?
Well, I was there on December 25th, partly because that's also part of where I come from, and I saw that there was no activity at the time. I therefore took it upon myself to follow up, and when I actually saw that, other than what we are talking about, because I also thought on first impression is that they launched at rent, but I then took time to go and ask what happened, and I was taken through some lessons by JICA, who are the project managers, and they explained to me what such large-scale stuff takes. So the siltation, the time that is given after siltation is done, the soil tests that were done from here, and time that is given to achieve something. And now I know as we speak, the actual, people are waiting for the actual construction to see the pace is going. But the pace of that project is fair enough.
So you're okay with the so far so good?
I wouldn't say it's so far so good, but I would say it is not so far off the matrix. I would say from what I learned, because this is not my area, but from what I learned from the experts, we are just doing at 30–40%, which is not acceptable. We should be at 70%, but it's also not that we are completely at 0%. So I think we give them time. Let's give it until May. Let's see how the process goes. Then I'll grant another interview and we can be able to talk deeply into how far it is. I also know that the government had its part to play in terms of giving some amount of money. And at the time in December when I was asking these questions, that money had not been given. I need to follow up and see whether that money has been given for that project to kick off. So there's quite a number of things, gray areas there, which I would rather leave it at that for now. But I assure you that now that you also reminded me, I'm also going to recheck it and see that the pace is fair and comfortable.
All right. Now, the heavy downpour, the rains all over, floods all over, people losing life and property. What do you think is the role of the public in averting floods, especially within the urban centers?
Rain harvesting. I think we still have poor literacy even in our own households on how to harvest rain. I mean, it's been raining. I don't know whether you even yourself you have harvested a cup of water out of the rain. So, you know,
I have not taken that initiative, but probably if you're challenging me, I should do that.
yes, I think at personal level, at households, even the way we construct our houses, the gutters that we used to be forced to, you know, one of the ways that we brought public health in the villages was to ensure that there is a pit latrine that has been constructed with a UVC, the pipe that goes up, so that people would accept the hygiene. Probably we need a similar campaigns for households to put the gutters to harvest the rain, and also maybe supply tanks through the county. These are ideas that can be done by a focused political leadership at the county level.
There's lots of politics in the northern collector tunnel. I want us to talk about this, but we go on a short break, then come back, discuss this and some more. Keep it Pillar TV. Remember, today we are with the Digital Director and Diaspora at State House, Mr. Dennis Itumbi. We'll be right back after a short commercial break. And welcome back to Spotlight. Remember, today we are with the Digital Director and Diaspora at State House, Mr. Dennis Itumbi, talking about issues affecting our country here. Mr. Dennis, before we went to the break, we touched slightly on the Northern Water Collector Tunnel, and there are lots of politics surrounding this matter. Murang'a governor talks about the need to have the people of Murang'a benefit from that revenue. What's your take on this?
First, I appreciate his remarks, and the people of Murang'a should and must benefit from the resource. And the resource is water. There is no single county can claim ownership of a national resource. Water is a national resource. It belongs to all of us. We have only entrusted it to Murang'a on our behalf collectively as a nation. So it is true, he should benefit from if a resource is harnessed and excavated within Murang'a County. They should be creative and package how they intend to charge the water. And if that is the thing, then he should also participate in the financing of the cost of excavating that water. So it cannot be one way. It cannot be that you cannot participate in the cost, but you want to participate in the collection of revenue that comes from the water. But let me put it this way. Okay. There is a bill, now an act of parliament, that shows what is a national resource and how national government shares it with county government. So is the water being harvested on Northern Corridor a national resource as defined by that law? That is a question I will leave to both lawyers of Murang'a County and our Attorney General.
You know, also the legislator in Gatanga says that we saw him talking on to the members of press, saying that he's going to mobilize his people, just because the directive by his excellency to benefit the people within Murang'a is not being followed.
That is a very serious issue. That one should happen. You cannot, for a long time, the people of Embu the people of Mbere of Embu County had the seven dams that were producing electricity, but electricity was not supplied to them. So that electricity is coming from the dams, but the people living a stone's throw away from the dams don't have electricity. And the excuse then was there is no step-up transformer that will bring down the power for these people to be able to afford it. So what is the purpose of taking care of that water? Why shouldn't they then just go and poison the water or something and cut all the poles that are used to transmit the thing if they're not benefiting from it? Communities that have properly taken care of our national resources should be the first to benefit from such resources that come from the areas. And I think that act clearly states that. And the Constitution, by the way, is very clear on that.
Okay. Let's address ourselves to the issue of health a bit. Nyali MP and former KTN reporter Mohamed Ali has sponsored a motion to ensure that the 47 counties benefit from or establish referral hospitals. Do you see such an endeavor, see light of day?
Well, I think he's doing what you call revisionism, because from 2013 to 2017, that's what government has been doing, ensuring that the county hospitals become referral hospitals. And how did we do that? We supplied machines, we built new laboratories and new theaters in not even one, 2 hospitals in every county. So 98 hospitals plus 4 national referral hospitals currently exist. So a motion to redo that is neither here nor there.
Let's touch on politics a bit. And a while ago, a section of residents of Kirinyaga went on social media, took it by storm, saying that His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta has, shortchanged them, saying that they didn't have a position of CS. Some are downplaying this as petty politics, but there are some who really feel that this is something that the president needs to adhere to. Where do you sit on this matter?
As a son of Kirinyaga, I don't think Kirinyaga needs a CS to be able to develop. It neither needs a PS despite having 3. It neither needs a senior government official despite having many.
Yeah.
I mean, Kirinyaga has had the first minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs in 1982.
Sure.
Then we had the chief of public service, Mr. Kareithi at the time.
Yeah.
Consistently, Kirinyaga has had very senior guys. That did not change our fortunes. Senior government officers are not appointed to serve where they come from. They are appointed to serve the nation. So we cannot then, and allow me to say this even for your viewers, so that the point can go home, it's a short story.
Go ahead.
One day, the current head of public service, Joseph Kenywa, lost the mother. Yeah. And the president attended the burial in Nyeri. The preacher who preached passionately in that burial said, Mr. President, you have a man here you have worked with at Treasury as permanent secretary for a very long time, and now you work with him in State House, but the mother died without seeing a tarmac road to her house. And as you have come, you have seen there is no tarmac here. When the president rose, he said, Kenywa ni mtu wangu wa mkono. Nothing else. He does what I say. So if there is someone to ask about roads, it's me, the president. Yeah. And it's me who has not built the road, not Kenywa. Yeah. Kenywa is doing his job and he's doing it well. In fact, by not having the tarmac road, shows he's serving other people more than he is serving himself. Yeah. And that is why I'm going to look at that issue as a person. What am I saying? It is not appointments that deliver development to a people. Yeah. It is the collective vision of a people that delivers them to where they want to go.
Okay, Mr. Dennis Itumbi, let's talk about the much talked about handshake between His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta and Right Honorable Raila Odinga. First of all, there are views that even those working within the Harambee House were caught by surprise. As an insider, did you see this coming?
Well, President Uhuru Kenyatta has always preached reconciliation and unity of the nation. So yeah, I mean, at one point, he even said it during the campaigns, that after the campaigns, he would meet Raila Odinga. As to whether I knew whether it was going to be that date or another date is neither here nor there. As for the handshake, I think we make too much hula baroo about very small things. The significance and symbolism is high, just like Jesus being baptized and a dove coming from heaven. But the impact is what you do after that. So let's wait for the committee to see it. There's a secretariat that has been formed. They'll give us the reports. Then we can have this proper discussion around that. All right.
Now, that particular ceasefire happened when the former U.S. Secretary of State happened to be in the country. Could we say probably he had a hand in striking the whole thing?
Anyone
the Rex Tillerson who happened to be in the
Kenya country takes pressure from no one. We are a proud nation, and our national anthem says we are proud of our heritage. And so we don't take dictations from anyone on who we should meet, who we should reconcile with. No. There is nothing, there is no pressure from anyone that we were complying to. It was an internal feeling of reconciliation.
Do you feel like now that Raila has joined or has neglected NASA, you'll be able to work under the manifesto of Jubilee?
We can only hope so, and wait and see. You see, this handshake happened between two people, between Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta. Those two people will eventually be the ones who are responsible for answering those two questions. One time, Uhuru Kenyatta, as chairman of KANU, said that I have a mouth, and on things that happen in closed door, I can speak for myself.
Do you think 2022 politics are now taking shape, given now that even Kalonzo Musyoka wants to be involved in Uhuru Odinga table?
Yeah, I mean, 2022 politics started immediately after we counted and announced the president then. So you will see a lot of movements, a lot of shifts, a lot of people saying different things, a lot of people angling to be deputy president, to the deputy president as he vies for the presidency. So those are things definitely that we will be seeing a lot.
Probably, what repercussion does this have to the current DP's candidature in 2022?
The DP has put it clearly, and I would rather respond to that question in his own words, that let us move away from the concentration on 2022 politics to the development of now, to how our children can have a better future, to how we can deliver the affordable housing, and to how we can ensure every Kenyan accesses healthcare. So in the words of the DP, 2022 politics is not very important. What is more important is now.
Are there structures to accommodate the opposition team within the government?
I know that question and where it is going to. And I'll say this, I mean, there has always been structures to accommodate every Kenyan at every step, at everywhere. So, I mean, as long as those opposition characters are Kenyans, why not?
Now, there are those who are calling for the constitutional amendment to accommodate or to have the post of PM.
Forget. We are not going to amend the constitution to fulfill the interest and selfish bits of a few people.
Yes. Now, let's talk about you, Dennis, a bit as we also wind up. You grew up in Kirinyaga, and before you joined your current position, you used to be a journalist and a blogger. How did you escalate to your current position?
Well, one day I was working for the Voice of America. One day I had done it all. I mean, I was going back to the studio, doing the same thing day in, day out. One day I put in a resignation letter from the Voice of America and decided to explore blogging. So I started a blog at the time called Fountain News and another one called Abudwasi. One was focusing on diaspora news and one was focusing on local news. Then I realized that actually I had better audience than when I was working for both VOA or when I was working for Citizen or when I was working for the People newspaper. And then I also started my own newspapers, focusing at the yet-to-be-formed counties. So I started 22 newspapers, focusing on different counties. Then I realized I actually had a better reach and marks. And then within that period, I then met Uhuru Kenyatta.
So what does your current position, your job entail?
Well, I have both an informal role at advisory level and a formal role at running the digitization of both State House and government of the Republic of Kenya.
Yes.
So day to day, I have a number of staff who will shape communication by the government to the public, and also a direct conversation with government, different ministers, PSAs, the presidency itself, to see on how we are approaching each day and what are the messages and the tone of those messages.
Speaking of which, some people in Kirinyaga or in Gishogu are saying that you're really making inroads and you want to quit that job and come into politics. Are you likely to be on the ballot in 2020?
When they taught me politics in school, they said politics is the art of the possible. Yeah. So I always swim in this swimming pool of possibilities. And because there are no charges in that swimming pool of possibilities, my swimming costume of possibilities is on.
Tell us about your pastor's moment on Facebook, which is an interesting forum that Doha's following. How did this whole idea come about?
Well, what most people don't know about me is that in Form 2 I was a CU chairman.
Oh, really?
And I've been involved in a lot of Bible exposure. I've also done, by the way, a bit of informal theology. Someone who still works for the Anglican Church now taught me African theology. So I appreciate my Bible. So most of the times when I go to church, I find the exposition of the Bible to be too technical for me. So I try to bring it on an online audience because most people don't go to church, and try and use real life stories as a means of telling the Bible story and the pastor's moments.
Maybe does this has to do with anything with your upbringing back in the family?
Yeah, I mean, my grandfather was Archbishop of the Anglican Church at one point, and so he also did a very serious influence on us in terms of church and preaching, that stuff, and also to tell me that you don't have to be ordained to be able to give a word. I mean, everybody has a testimony they can tell and a story they can tell. And since I'm also a poet, so I love
So this really a pastor's moment, just like you define it.
Yeah, it's really a pastor's moment, which takes a different look at different Bible verses and stuff. For instance, I mean, now allow me now to take up your chair a bit. Where was Adam when Eve was eating the fruit?
Sorry?
Where was Adam when Eve was eating the fruit? Where was Adam? From your Bible knowledge.
I'm the one interviewing here, so,
so
allow me not to answer that. I don't want you to take over.
That's a good one. You have just escaped from a question. But now you see.
You got me.
Yes. Actually, the Bible says Adam was right there. But you see, throughout Sunday school, we were told Adam was somewhere looking for something, and the snake was speaking to Eve. Yes. But the Bible says Eve ate the fruit and gave it to Adam, who was right there. So he watched the
Dennis, talking of Adam and Eve, are you dating?
Well, not yet. You know, the Bible tells me, Proverbs something says, a prudent wife is a gift from God. So I think God is still packaging my gift. I think what he's done, he has already gotten the box. He has already put someone in that box. So he's packaging the gift, then he throws it from heaven. My hands are open and waiting for that
You know,
gift.
there's the much talked about Jackie Maribe. What's your relationship with Jackie Maribe?
Wow, that's a question I've answered a lot of times. And I always find it interesting because for me and Jackie Maribe, there has never been a relationship. And unfortunately, there will never be. So, but we are very good friends.
Yeah.
We do a lot more. I'm surprised she's not here. I think she must be working today. We are very good friends, but anything beyond that is a good storybook that has been written for a long time. I hope one day the storybook will be over so that I can also read it and see how this dating has been going on.
Okay, we have to wind up, but my director tells me we have to wind up, but I want to ask you a final question. Now that you represent or you are charged with informing public on Jubilee administration, what should Kenyans expect as Uhuru takes up his next term, his last term in office?
All I can tell you is that there will be a faster pace of development. There will be a very hands-on president, and there will be a traveling president internally more than externally. There will be a lot of the president in the counties to try and monitor and ensure that the pace of these projects like the Thiba Dam that you have spoken about is delivered at a faster pace.
All right, nashukuru sana Bwana Dennis.
Thank you very much.
Muda wako.
Asante sana.
Nakukaribisha tena uje hapa tuzungumze tukipata wakati.
Bila shaka mimi niko tayari.
Nashukuru.
Asante.
All right, many thanks for tuning in to Pillar TV. We come to the end of the show. Till next time is a goodbye, good luck and God bless. My name is Njoroge Kaburu.